The weirdest thing happened the other day, or let me say yesterday, or maybe even this morning. I may be getting my days confused, but nevertheless, the weirdest thing happened. I'm watching Tucker Carlson on Fox News, and he's giving his typical looking into the camera and giving his pitch to thing, and the thing that it comes out of his mouth is a head nod, a thumbs up, a you go girl to one Elizabeth Warren. And yes, I know that's weird, but let's have a conversation about it because everything that Tucker Carlson said in that video is absolutely, completely, 100% gold star correct. Welcome to the Soapbox. My name is Jamarl Thomas. This is Soapbox After Dark. And by the way, guys, if you enjoy the content that you find yourself, if you find yourself coming back here often, please consider supporting this content through PayPal or Patreon. I often say even $1 helps, especially in these times where they are demonetizing videos, and I have no idea if my channel will be next. But to get back to what we were talking about before, yes, Tucker Carlson comes out and gives a you go girl to Elizabeth Warren. And the point that he makes here is 100%, hell, 1,000% correct. I'm just going to let Tucker Carlson do his piece. It's only 2 minutes long. And again, everything that he says here is correct. The qualms that I have with Elizabeth Warren have to do with backbone, have to do with the ability to withstand political pressure. And I got to be honest, there are other people in the race that are just better at what she represents in the race. She may have this thing about, being angry at Wall Street bankers and everything else, but ultimately, I got to be honest, I don't trust Elizabeth Warren. And I don't even know if I believe she has what it takes to beat Trump. But she does seem to be, let's say, the establishment's middle ground person. It's like she's in no way going to challenge the capitalistic system, but yes, she is going to do some, or at least try to do some domestic programs that is going to tap into our wealth. The lefties, for the most part, will probably agree with her domestic programs. I have no idea what Elizabeth Warren wants for foreign policy, even though I know she is a staunch ally of Israel. So right off the bat, that seems to be a red flag for me. Nevertheless, you can't take it away from her domestic policies, especially this notion of a wealth tax and those type of things, would be beneficial to the American worker. Let's take a listen to Tucker Carlson give his you go girl to Elizabeth Warren.
Unstoppable market forces are a key driver of the problems American workers face. From our trade agreements to our tax code, we have encouraged companies to invest abroad, ship jobs overseas, and keep wages low, all in the interest of serving multinational companies and international capital with no particular loyalty to the United States.
I'm going to let Tucker finish what he's saying here, but God, the fact that this is being put on Fox News is mind-blowing to me. Understand, the methodology of capitalism, its core thought is, how do we get a product out as cheap as we can possibly make it in order to maximize the profit that we get from it? And the entire point of it is to maximize your profit. This notion of hiring a worker is secondary to the process. People often ask this thing of, like, I can't believe companies did X, or I can't believe companies did Y. Companies function in the way of maximizing their profit. If you look at companies that way, it makes all the sense in the world that companies behave in the way they behave. Is it insane that a drug company would increase the price of its product 200, 300, 400%? No, it's not insane when that company knows that it has a cornerstone for the market, or it has cornered the market, and that the only way you're going to get this product to save your life or to make your life bearable is to pay them for it. it makes all the sense in the world for them to increase the price of that product, even though morally you say, oh God, that feels bad, that feels gross. If you create an economic system that incentivizes shipping a job to China, and you can pay that person, let's say $3, whereas beforehand you were paying an American worker $15, $20 to do the job. As a corporation, you are allowed to expropriate that profit to the top. You've gotten rid of the tariffs with the trade deals that you've passed. The owners can expropriate the wealth to the top. That American worker is going to lose his job. He's going to have to find a job somewhere else, maybe Walmart, where they're going to pay him less than what he was making before. And would that guy be pissed off by that process? Yeah, you bet he's going to be pissed off by that process. And is he going to point a finger at a governmental system that allowed that process to take place? A system that was supposed to be his weapon against the top 1% and forces that kind of go in this particular direction just by virtue of the momentum of the incentives built into the system. Yeah, he's going to be pissed off. And yeah, he may put in a Donald Trump after dealing with that particular process, seeing that there was a Bill Clinton, seeing there was a Hillary Clinton and Obama advocating this at the height of their lungs. Even when the public was against it, Obama was out there pushing for it at the height of his lungs. Even when Hillary Clinton was trying to say, no, I ain't got nothing to do with this, fuck up about this TPP, Obama was out there still screaming it at the height of his lungs. Completely disjointed from what the public wants. Didn't care. Same thing with the election of putting Clinton in that position. The Democratic Party didn't care what the public wanted. It was her turn. I'm going to restart Tucker from the beginning. Let's rehear him.
Key driver of the problems American workers face. From our trade agreements to our tax code, we have encouraged companies to invest abroad, ship jobs overseas, and keep wages low, all in the interest of serving multinational companies and international capital with no particular loyalty to the United States. It's becoming easier and easier to shift capital and jobs from one country to another. That's why our government has to care more about defending and creating American jobs than ever before, not less. We can navigate the changes ahead if we embrace economic patriotism and make American workers our highest priority, rather than continuing to cater to the interests of companies and people with no allegiance to America. End quote. Now, let's say you regularly vote Republican. Ask yourself, what part of the statement you just heard did you disagree with? Was there a single word that seemed wrong to you? Probably not. Here's the depressing part. Nobody you voted for said that or would ever say it. Republicans in Congress can't promise to protect American industries. They wouldn't dare to do that. It might violate some principle of Austrian economics. It might make the Koch brothers mad. It might alienate the libertarian ideologues who, to this day, fund most Republican campaigns. So no, a Republican did not say that, sadly. Instead, the words you just heard are from, and brace yourself here, Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts. It's true. Yesterday, Warren released what she called her Plan for Economic Patriotism. Amazingly, that's pretty much what it is, economic patriotism. There's not a word about identity politics in the document. There are no hysterics about gun control or climate change. There's no lecture about the plight of transgender illegal immigrants. It's just pure old-fashioned economics, how to preserve good-paying American jobs. Even more remarkable, many of Warren's policy prescriptions make obvious sense.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I just watched Tucker Carlson give a common sense heads up to, listen, this notion of protecting American jobs and actually supporting the American worker as opposed to multinational corporations that don't have allegiance to the United States, that's a good idea. And none of this, I'm just going to back up my party and just go, no, this is a good idea. And the fact that Elizabeth Warren came out with it, he didn't shy away from it. He just says, yes, everything that she said here was a good idea. More importantly, why hasn't any of the Republicans come out and say the same thing? Oh, I love that. You must understand, from the standpoint of African Americans, and I'm going to clue you in on something. African Americans often think that Republicans are racist for various reasons, but one of the main reasons has to do with the way whites vote. Whites vote for Republicans in large deal, and we look at this process and say, why the hell would anybody vote for a party that behaves in those ways, that radically goes after their own self-interest? That's an enigma to us. That's a puzzle to us. We don't quite get that. And so the way we fix that puzzle and the way we make that work is to say they're doing this for reasons other than their economic livelihood. Meaning, when we vote, oftentimes blacks vote out of fear. When they were supporting Clinton in those numbers, they weren't supporting Clinton in those numbers because they loved her policies. It was more so because it kept the boogeyman away. By the same token, is it possible that other demographics vote not necessarily out of fear, but out of reasons that go beyond their economic livelihood? And that's kind of where this notion comes in. This is where that perspective comes from. What Tucker Carlson just said here is, I don't know any Republicans that would ever say what Elizabeth Warren has just said, even though everything Elizabeth Warren has just said makes all the sense in the world given our current economic environment. That is mind-blowing to me that that has taken place. And what Tucker Carlson is saying is absolutely 1,000% correct. So how do you mind the gap? How do you get it from, yes, we like what she's saying from the standpoint of economic policy, meaning this particular perspective of the world, which is, for all intents and purposes, the Sanders perspective of the world. And how do you get from that to, okay, let's vote for somebody that's willing to do something like that? Let's say a Sanders. The problem here, he alluded to it, is what would be called identity politics. Now, Carlson would make the argument that the identity politics is divisive, and I would agree with him that it's divisive. I would disagree with him that it's the Democrats that only do this. It is both parties that do this. Both parties use identity politics, and both of them use it to some degree in the same way. I've argued that the way you get people, that the way you mine that gap, is through policy, and not this notion of highlighting and screaming at the height of your lungs about identity, but by dealing with the things that create a wide envelope across all of us. Economics. You can hate my guts. You can be in Alabama somewhere and you can say, God, I hate that Negro. But we have the same issues when it comes down to, how am I going to pay for my kids? How am I going to pay for my dogs? How am I going to pay for my rent? How am I going to pay for my car? How am I going to do X? How am I going to do Y? From an economic standpoint, there is an envelope that engulfs all of us. But the moment you get into identity issues, it starts slicing people off. The argument that Sanders tends to make tends to be based in economics. In order to get through a Democratic primary, there are certain issues of identity that you have to tread through. But ultimately, what Sanders, the platform that he puts forth, is economics. What Tucker Carlson is literally saying here is, here's a platform of economics that helps the American worker that is not based entirely in this notion of an individual's identity. Now, you can say that's racist. You can say that's sexist. You can say that's homophobic. You can say that's all sorts of things. You can say he's a horrible person because he cares about those issues in lieu of economics issues. You can say all of that. My issue here is more so, I want to see changes in the world, in the wider world. And as opposed to having these arguments about stuff that I know I can't win, because ultimately I can't make you understand what it is to live my life any more than you can make me understand what it is to live yours. However, I do think we're human beings, and I do think from an economic space we are united. We are the 99% on this issue. And all of us, to some degree, have to deal with this just to make ends in a capitalistic system. What Tucker Carlson is making a point here is a damn good point. And for Republican voters, you should be asking yourself the exact same thing. Why don't your people deal with issues that are going to be to your benefit? And when Trump was running and he was strongly hitting on that particular point, that seemed to be the thing that resonated with people. And I strongly suspect the economic thing is what resonated with people. Why don't you hold them accountable in this sense? Why are you okay with a tax cut that gives so much wealth to the top 1%, like 80, 90% to the top 1%, when he said he wasn't going to do that? Why are you okay with him trying to take your health care away, which is, again, in and of itself, another tax cut? Why are you okay with these things when he said he wasn't going to do these things? And by no means am I saying go vote for Elizabeth Warren. I am saying that you should question the individual that you are putting your support behind, all down the political spectrum. If they can't say what she just said and what Tucker Carlson just said, something that definitely, definitively affects you and your life, your ability to put food on the table, your ability to take care of your loved ones, if your party isn't pushing that, and mind you, the fact of the matter is, that's not all Democrats that push that. There are very select few that make that line that Tucker Carlson just said here. Democrats are just as beholden to the wealthy as the Republican Party is at this point. If your politicians can't function in that way and talk about the issues specific to you, and not in a bullshit way, policy way, this is what we want to do in the context of policy, and this is the specifics, then you should question those politics, Republican or Democrat. I'll end this here because this video has gone too long. If you guys enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support through PayPal or Patreon. And again, even $1 helps. They are demonetizing these videos, so thank you for your help. Thanks all.